and go in, and a lot of people think, oh, the bell is to, wake up God and sort of alert God, hey, I'm coming inside. But of course, that's not what the bell is for, because God isn't sleeping or needing any kind of warning about you showing up. It's a ringing of the bell to remind us, to wake us up that, hey, I'm going into a holy place. And so her puja times vary a little bit, but it sometimes overlaps with satsang. And I always love it because I take it as this beautiful God-sent reminder of, hey, wake up. Here we are, we're coming in. It's this beautiful bell that just pulls us out of the slumber that we are in and wakes us up and reminds us, oh, yeah, going into a holy place. Not a physical holy place like walking into a temple, but I'm going into the temple of myself. I'm going into the holy place that is within me. So I always appreciate those bells when they come during the satsang time. Starting as usual with one of our questions that's come in advance, and then we'll open it up to any questions that anyone here has. If you could teach the entire world just one concept, what would it be? I would teach people to let go. Because I think holding on to things is what leads to the greatest amount of suffering. We hold on to so many grudges, pain, stories about our own selves, identities based on the past, based on what's happened to us, based on what we've done. And we're so stuck trying to move through our lives. And when we suffer, we bring suffering to others. Those who are mean and violent are those who are suffering. Nobody who's actually happy makes other people suffer. Nobody who's actually in peace themselves harms someone else. And so by finding our own peace, our own joy, our own truth, not only are we experiencing what we're here for, not only are we opening to the incredible experience and existence of divinity, but we're actually turning ourselves into nicer people for the planet. We're actually turning ourselves into assets for the planet rather than detriments. But that clinging that we do to expectations we have, to frustrations we have, to ideas we have, concepts we have, senses of what's right that we have, ideas of what we want, rationalizations, justifications, all of this identity based on past things, all of that we hold on to just makes us stuck and suffer. So if I could teach everyone one thing, it would be to let go. My favorite story about this is of this city in India where they were overrun by monkeys. Now, if you live in India or you've spent any amount of time in India, you know that monkeys are kind of a major problem. And they're pests. I mean, they're very sweet pests, but sometimes they're sweet. But in general, they're pests. And they come into rooms, into houses, steal things. They pull clothing off clothing lines and tear it up and do all sorts of other petulant and obnoxious things. Not to mention get violent if you're walking down the street with a bag of bananas that they want and you don't want to give it to them. But India is a country full of people committed to nonviolence. So it's not a matter of let's just poison them or kill them or do something to harm them. So what this city did was they got really creative and they took coconuts and they hollowed out the coconut. And inside the coconut, they put something that monkeys really like, a sweet or a piece of fruit. But the key was that they made the hole in the coconut just big enough for an open hand to go in and too small for a closed fist to come out. So the monkeys would stick their hand in, grab hold of their prize, and then they couldn't get their closed fist back out. And so if you've got 4 legs and one of them is stuck in a coconut, you can't run, you can't climb trees, you can't swing from branches. So the monkey catchers were able then to just catch them and take them non-violently back into the jungle. But I love this story because scientifically, we know that they are actually our closest DNA relative. Meaning, on every biological marker, they are the smartest of the creatures other than humans. They have the greatest capacity for reasoning, for intellect, for understanding. And so you would think, well, obviously the monkeys are smart enough, they wouldn't let themselves get captured. Once they realized they couldn't get their fist out, they would just let go of whatever's in the coconut. But they never let go. And so it became really easy for them to be caught and taken back to the jungle. Now remember, they are our closest DNA relatives. They are the closest to us, intellectually, rationally, with our ability to reason. And we do exactly the same thing, which is why I love the story. The monkeys holding on to that one thing that they think is going to bring them some kind of happiness is actually their downfall. Not the thing itself, but their absolute refusal to let go of it. If they could realize this thing has made me stuck and let go, their hand would very easily slide back out of the coconut and they would be free. At any moment, all they have to do is realize it is my closed fist that has made me stuck. In that moment, let go and free their hand. But they didn't and we don't. And in our lives, it's the same thing. We hold on to things that we think are what are going to bring us happiness, expectations, attachments, desires, to things that we think we must avoid, fears, aversions, to things that we think tell us who we are, our identity, our history, our stories. actually, it is those things that make us stuck. The more we hold on, the more stuck we are, like the monkeys. So the ability to let go is the requirement to be free. You cannot hold on and be free. To be free, we have to let go. So if I were given a magic wand of giving people one skill, I would magic wand everybody able to just let go of whatever it is that's making them stuck, so that we could be free. And it's really just, it's a shift in the mind, just like it would be for the monkeys. All the monkey has to do is make a decision, Ki, I don't need this. I'd rather be free than have that banana. I'd rather be free than have that piece of sweet. A simple shift in the mind. To see the thing you're holding on to not as a precious prize or the truth of who you are, but actually to see it as the very thing making you stuck. And if we make that shift in our mind to look at, what am I attached to? And to see it not as that which I need, I just need it to be happy, but to actually see the attachment as the thing keeping me from happiness, then we become able to let it go. And we find our freedom. And in that freedom, we find a happiness that is far greater than we ever would have gotten, should we ever have achieved or attained whatever it was we were attached to. Because the ultimate happiness is freedom. So we just need to make that shift in our mind and let go. Other questions that are here? Any questions that anyone here might have? Yes.
Swamiji, when you came, we were hearing about Mahamrityunjay mantra, which is really dear to us also. Saying, Urva Rupu Bandhanam Mrityur Mokshima. How to liberate from bondage?
Beautiful.
What is death and what is moksha?
Beautiful. So in the Mahamrityunjay mantra that we chant, this beautiful mantra we chanted in the Arati, it's the mantra that says, Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvarukamiva Bandhana Mrityor Mukshi Mamita. It's this very, very sacred mantra, and he's brought up the last part, which basically says, let me be as free from bondage as it's a sort of half fruit, half squash. If you could think of like a mix between a pumpkin, a cucumber, and a fruit that grows on a vine. And that when it's fully ripe, automatically it separates itself from the vine. So you don't actually have to yank it off the vine. When it's ripe, it just drops the vine. So the mantra says, let me be like that I become so ripe, so full, that I just automatically drop my attachments. Well, remember, the mantra begins by bringing us into the feet of Lord Shiva, but very specifically speaking about the three-eyed one, the third eye. Now, whether you are a devotee of Lord Shiva or not, whether you believe in Lord Shiva or not, it doesn't matter. What's powerful here is the reminding of this third eye. Because this third eye is the center that actually shows us truth. These two eyes show us what you could consider illusion. Meaning, it's true, as in this table exists. It's important for me to see it so that when I stand up, I don't actually trip over it. But ultimately, what these two eyes show is that which is existent only on a very, very temporary, superficial level of existence, this physical plane. These two eyes show us form, packaging, they show color, they show light, they show movement, size, all of the things related to packaging. Now again, that's important if you are driving a car, walking in the world. You need to see what's there so you don't trip into it or bump someone or fall down. It's important to be able to see what to eat, what is food, what is not food. But they only show us packaging, not content, form, not essence. This third eye, the divine eye, or the energy center called the Agya Chakra, is actually the energy center of truth. Meaning, that which shows us essence, content, divinity. Because that is the essence, that is the content for all of us, regardless of what the form is. Form may be thin, fat, tall, short, dark, fair, old, young, male, female. Doesn't matter. The content is divinity. Content is consciousness. This eye shows us that. So when I'm able to actually see the truth, then I stop being attached to things of form. When I realize that I am divinity, well then suddenly how many diamond bracelets I have becomes pretty irrelevant. When I realize that I am divinity, my complexion, it's too dark, too fair, too this, too that, it becomes irrelevant. When I realize I'm divinity, my bank account, my title, my career, the place I hold in society, these things become irrelevant because it's wrapping paper. When you get a gift, you can only be interested in the wrapping paper for so long. Ultimately, you want to... But the more mature we get, we realize, the gift is inside. Well, the same thing is true spiritually. As we mature spiritually, we realize the gift is inside. So we use this third eye to see the truth. And when we see the truth, the transitory, ephemeral nature of everything that's happening around us, everything that we think is us, we become less attached to it. We become more anchored and grounded in essence, in content, in truth, meaning in divinity, in love, in oneness. And so automatically we ripen. And our attachment to that vine, it just drops. Through that blossoming of Gyan and Bhakti, we just drop that attachment. And moksha is that which we experience when we let go of the shackles, the chains of the mind. I always say moksha is not freedom from the body, because the body is not the problem. Moksha is freedom from the mind. People think, अच्छा जब शरीर शांत हो जाए तो फिर मोक्ष मिलेगा. अगर शरीर में ही शांति प्राप्त नहीं कर सकते हैं, तो don't think कि शरीर को छोड़ने के बाद शांति मिलेगा. The body is not what's keeping us from being in peace. Nobody ever says, oh my God, if my elbow could just be different, then I would be in peace. Right? If you could just do something about my knee, I would be in peace. It's not the body. It's the mind. So moksha is freedom from the destructive games of the mind. When we use this third eye to see truth, we become much less pawns in the hands of the programmed mind that are just moving us around like on a game board. Feel jealous now. Act out of jealousy. Suffer the repercussions of the action you did. I mean, this is the way that most of us are being moved around as pawns on a board. Feel angry. Act out of anger. Suffer repercussions of karmic fruit from acting out of anger. This is how most of us get moved around like pawns in the hands of our mind. So we use a meditation on our third eye to free ourselves from that. Beautiful. Other questions? Yes.
Mataji, I'm Shivani. I read this theory of Maslow's hierarchy needs. So what we read about spirituality comes later in life. First, the basic needs, like for common mortals, like majority of people look for food, clothing, shelter. So how to get them into that realization that spirituality also is an important aspect in life?
First, feed them. Teach them later, feed them first. She was speaking about a theory, a philosophy that I do subscribe to, developed by a philosopher, psychologist named Abraham Maslow, who put our needs into a kind of pyramid, hierarchy, in which the bottom layer is things like food, shelter, medicine when you're sick, education. You know, you move up more and more and more, and ultimately after your other needs are met, spirituality is kind of at the top, as though I'm only in need of spirituality at the end. Now, I have to say I don't subscribe to the fact that we have to necessarily go through every single layer. It's been a little too long since I've been out of school to remember all of the layers, but it has to do with our place in the world and family and work and fulfillment and meaning in life and sort of all of these things, and then ultimately we get to spirituality. First the physical needs, then the other needs. Now, she asked, how do we help people who are so focused just on food know that in a human body, we are programmed for survival. I mean, in anybody. Try to kill an ant, try to kill a mosquito. Nothing wants to die. Survival is the very most basic instinct mechanism that we all have. If you are starving, you've got to feed yourself first. The body is going to do whatever it needs to do to stay alive. And remember, we need our bodies. Anyway, even to attain enlightenment, you need your body. Enlightenment shows us we are not the body, but the body is the medium through which we experience enlightenment. If my physical brain is not functioning well, I'm not going to actually be able to meditate. I'm not going to be able to do my japa. I'm not going to be able to do seva. If I am brain damaged in some way, if I have a brain injury, or if you drug me in something that messes up my brain, it's very likely that my inclination to wake up in the morning and sit for meditation will no longer be there. I mean, we all know what happens when you drink alcohol, you take drugs, all of the Maryada, all of the sanskars, all of the ways that we move through the world, our values, our ethics, our priorities. Suddenly everything is out the window and people are, dancing naked on tables and doing things that they really regret the next day. And that's just on some relatively harmless chemicals. But you get in there and you really impact the brain in a very severe way. You're going to change the entire personality of the being for a long period of time. Maybe permanently. Meaning my ability to understand myself, my ability to move on a spiritual path, my ability to choose meditation over sleeping in, my ability to choose reading scriptures instead of watching sitcoms, my ability to choose doing yoga instead of scrolling Facebook, my ability to live by spiritual precepts, by yam and niyam, to live by dharma. All sorts of brain injuries change people vastly. So even though we are not the body, we require the body to be healthy, to be conscious. We require the brain to be functional for us to actually move forward on a spiritual path. This is why, for example, in ashrams we eat sattvic food. Otherwise, why bother? Because we know that the food we eat, the chemicals from it, the way that it impacts our physical body, actually changes our ability to meditate. It's why we eat food that's sattvic, so that our mind, our physical brain, can actually be in a state that's much more conducive to meditation. So, if you are starving, if you are dehydrated, if you are under severe survival stress, as in I'm sick and there's no medicine, therefore I will likely die, or my child is sick and I have no ability to save them, or my husband or wife or mother or father is sick and I don't know what to do and I don't have money for a doctor, there is no way you are going to be able to sit down and take out a mala and do japa. You are going to need to figure out how to find a doctor, how to find medicine, how to get food. that's going to take precedence. And to think that somehow our goal is that people who are starving should become meditators. Our goal should be to feed them, then teach them meditation. Because as spiritual beings ourselves, not only do we have a need to have our personal needs met, but one of our needs, it's not exactly the way Maslow described it, but it fits in there. One of our needs is meaning in our life, fulfillment in our life, meaningful engagement. Well, we're going to call that dharma. It is our dharma to feed people who are starving. It is our dharma to put kids in school who don't have access to schooling. It is our dharma to bring clean water to people who need clean water to drink. Only then should we even begin to think about the rest, both for them and for us. A lot of times people ask me, so what do you actually, what's your role here? And I always laugh because all of us have the same role, which is to be in seva and just to serve whatever the present moment requires. And I love that because that is a spiritual practice. To simply respond to actually what the moment requires rather than what I think I am meant to teach or give. So for example, as you may have noticed, one of the roles I play is I lead satsang. I give spiritual talks, I teach meditation. But if somebody walks into my office because they came into the reception area and nobody was there, or they got kind of turned around and lost, and so they opened the door and ended up in my office. And it was a guy who was looking to get his mother registered in one of the free medical camps that we run. And they've traveled for 3 days, let's say, from some village, God knows where, on foot, on the back of a bullock cart, because he saw some advertisement for a free medical camp. And he's finally arrived. For me to say to this guy, oh, you're here, great, sit down, let me teach you meditation, is foolish, bordering on criminal. The guy needs a hot meal. He needs a shower. He needs to be assured that we're going to get his mother registered for the medical camp. And only once all of that is done does it make any sense at all for me to even begin to think about telling this man, hey, and you should come for satsang. First, get his mother in the camp. Let the man sleep for the first time in 3 days. So as people who are spiritual people, one of our greatest opportunities is actually to ask ourselves not, what do I think is important to offer the world? But actually, what does the world want of me in this very moment? What is needed of me in this moment? And yeah, sometimes it's to lead a meditation, to do satsang, to give a talk, to write a book. And sometimes it's to open up a room and get somebody fed and give someone a cup of hot tea or get them registered for a medical camp or whatever it may be. And that's for me the greatest way of living in Dharma. And so if someone's hungry, let us feed them. They'll find their way to the higher levels. And if we notice they're not, then offer that. But first we need to give them what they really need. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. And I look so forward to being with you tomorrow. And a beautiful day to our family joining us from online, from all over the world. So much love to you all.